This video deals with Chapter 6, and because this is kind of a general overview of ESL, we are we're just going to talk about some aspects and not in super detail. Several of you have already engaged in using the ELPA 21 screening test to place students in your ESL program, or at least you know that people in your school do that. This is a huge improvement. It used to be that we had an old thing called a loss test, and there were only 2, maybe 4 versions of it, if I recall. And you ended up using the test multiple times if the student didn't exit on the first time around. So the kids would actually remember the exam and be able to do better on it. The first thing, and I'm going to have it in the assignment for this week, is an example of a home language survey. I think most of you should be familiar with this. Usually these are, I know at Lexington, they didn't do this at the school. When a person went to the main office to get enrolled, they would, and you have to realize, by the way, you can't put anybody in ESL if the parents object to it. You can't test them for it. They have a complete right to refuse ESL services. Can't be mandated, okay? Now, whether they succeed or not may be another issue, but it cannot be mandated. They have to sign up for the testing, and they have to agree for the placement. So you need the cooperation of the parents. Just to mention that sometimes parents refuse to have their child in ESL because they feel that they know better. They feel that the student will do better if they're forced to just be smothered or immersed in English. Now, you know that doesn't always work. Very bright students, adaptable students can be successful, but it's not generally a good way to make them successful. I've seen situations where parents from a more educated or upper class did not want their children mixing with lower class students. That's the only way I could say that. And they did not want them, they saw ESL as undesirable or undesirable students. So that was very unfortunate, but sometimes that is from other cultures. They have class distinctions. They're concerned about who their sons and daughters are going to be sitting next to in the school. Okay, well, those are something to be aware of. Now, the actual survey itself is going to ask, do they have anyone at their home, like a caregiver or one of the parents who speaks a language other than English? That's usually an indication. Even if both parents speak English and they have a nanny that speaks Portuguese, that could lead them to be an ESL. And as I mentioned, parents can stop that. They don't have to agree to that. So, so that's something that is on this survey. Now, I have a little survey here on the screen. I don't think it's going to mess up my television, my site on here, but I'm going to take a quick look at it. It'll be the one that you will have on the assignment. It's from, no, I guess I can't minimize Zoom. Okay, maybe I can move it down a little bit. Let's see. I wanted to look at this for just a second. And it should be that one right there. And it is from Union County Public Schools in North Carolina. It has like name, address, etc., parents, guardian. It does ask for the native language of the parents. Do you need free translation services to understand school records? So this is to accommodate diversity. Origin, country of origin, ethnicity. Ethnicity doesn't mean much of anything to me. It's They ask about what language is used most often, what did they learn at first, what language is spoken in the home, are other languages spoken in the home. Okay, that's basically all that's in that one. I'm going to go back to, all right. So you will look at that and see those options. I'm kind of recording this in the basement of the house I just moved into, and a fly is trying to stay alive by crawling around on my screen or on me. Okay, so they're going to look at previous education. I mentioned that in the last video. And they look at, it's not on the home language survey, but these are things you should look for. The home language survey is just a minimal bit of information. Aptitude and interest, you know, what are the, you kind of need to do your own survey to find out more about your student, because if you don't have a lot of records, and you may get high school records from another country, or you basically may be stuck with the ELPA. You may not have a lot to go on in terms of previous education. So you have to ask a lot of questions. Things you want to look for are, I would say, some characteristics other than determining language level, like are they beginner, level 1, emerging, developing, are they fluent? Those are the 4 given in this text. Roughly, ALPA is going to give you something similar to that. But I think you need to go beyond that. You need to look at the student's interests. These are huge in terms of success in teaching. Anyone, if you find you have a student that really loves mechanics, automobiles, car magazines, that can be a great way to promote reading and writing and persuade them to work in schools. Give them things that they like. Don't give them only books about the pioneers. It may not even relate to the pioneers. They say, what's the Oregon Trail? They won't know what that is. But if you show them different types of cars and even some more complicated things about the mechanics, they may understand that. Other things that students can hook into in terms of interest level could be clothing, could be customs. I think a lot of concrete things, cooking, maybe they like geography, or maybe they like stories, you know. Always looking for, I'm kind of wandering about here, but if you can find high interest, low reading level books, those are really good. I have some of those in my office. They're kind of like middle school or 4th grade level, but they have things, everything from disasters and tornadoes and automobiles, inventions, space travel, Bigfoot, whatever it is. You never know. Ghosts, I don't care. People like strange, interesting things. They don't like just the mundane. Or they have more levels in there. They talk about expanding and bridging. So you can have 4 levels, 5 levels. You can have all kinds of terms used to define this. Types of assessment, summative evaluation. That's usually where you find students are at the end of the course. Informative means where are they now? For instance, let's say you gave them a paragraph, and it was obvious from the paragraph that they didn't really know paragraph structure. They just kind of wrote a story, a narrative. They had no knowledge of descriptive paragraphs, paragraphs that explain how to do something, or paragraphs that are persuasive. That would be really advanced. So you would note that, you know, they only know how to write a narrative, and they don't have trouble sequencing, for instance. So that would give you some idea about writing. I'm particularly interested in writing because I think that's the highest and most valuable skill. If you can write well, then that's an indicator that you are thinking clearly, and you're also anticipating your audience, and you have good communication skills. It talks about different types of assessments. I think the ones that if we, the ELPA test will check speaking and listening, and I think I'm right on these. I'm trying to recall because I've never actually had an ELPA test because they're reserved only for English second language learners, okay, ELs. But reading, writing, speaking, and listening are the 4 skills. And a lot of the simpler ones, I remember whatever they were, they may hear a dialogue and they have to tell what's happening in the dialogue. That's measuring their listening skills. And then they have to explain something. I think I've seen a lot of language tests that require a person to actually speak back to the test, and so the samples are taken. Some of the easier ones in terms of administration is reading and writing. Reading because you have multiple choice, and writing because I think that is the ultimate skill. Having students write a short paragraph is invaluable. I have a lot of stuff on interpreting writing skills, and they go through and they show different paragraphs of like people that barely write any comprehensible sentence. You know, they're beginning, they don't have the writing skills. But then as it progresses through and you see that they have a sequence and you see they have logic and you see they have an awareness of audience, then those are very substantial developments. And then you may ask, it said, well, how do we improve their writing? And the answer is by reading. Reading improves writing. And writing improves writing if it's focused and you have an audience. Several of you on your, I'm going to have a little video about your discussion. You talk about have a writer's workshop, and that is marvelous because that was used in classes I had in creative writing or poetry, where we share our stuff. I mean, that's the point of it. You write something, you share it. The same as if you made a speech and you shared it, okay? But for the purposes of education, we usually focus on writing skills. And so you discuss many things. You discuss things like grammar and spelling and making clarity in sentences and word choice. Do they have the register? Do they have the vocabulary? Do they need to acquire more vocabulary to talk about what they're talking about? And also helping students to use more elaborate words. Yes, kitty, you're a good kitty. And finally, having the opportunity for students. Do you want to jump up here? Come on. This is my friend that's helping me. This thing is called a Maine Coon, or at least like a Maine Coon. It's a big fluffy cat. Okay, they have claws. I need to trim. Okay, painful. Where was I? Ouch, yes, there it was. But so when you deal with writing, and I like it when kids read something and then they practice imitating the pattern or the tone in rewriting or paraphrasing what they've read. It's not plagiarism, it's paraphrasing. It's trying to get the same idea across, but with maybe their more limited vocabulary. So that's really what I want to say, talk about in chapter 6, I'm sorry. It talks in here about rubric for interview for a performance task. And you could make up a rubric like this. They talk about portfolios. I love portfolios, but unfortunately, they're usually only used in art or maybe music. But unfortunately, because they don't produce a number, a quantitative number, that people can just point at it and say, he's a 4 on a scale of 5 or something, then people tend to not like them. I think portfolios are great for personal growth. They help you to show work you've done, how you can improve. Okay, it talks about different program models, sheltered. I've already talked about this in the first week of the class. sheltered instruction, co-teaching. Um, it has the pull-outs at the end, talks about pull-out types of exercises. Even as this is really similar to the first week of my class. We talk about talks about the type of program, etc. Pull out. I'm not a big fun ally or admirer of pull out programs. Okay, so that chapter gives you a general idea about placement. I think placement is something that you should be flexible in moving students. You need to watch out. Some kids like ESL so much they never want to leave the course. And then the biggest part of placement is making sure the students have as much interaction with English speakers as possible. The sheltered instruction program, generally in most schools, is not an all day. There'll be 3 or 4 classes, like in the morning or afternoon, where they participate in music and PE and courses that are not inherently academic language intensive. That's very good and that's very healthy. I don't like it when ESL English learners are isolated in a classroom, because they can feel very safe with that. Okay, let's see, my cat is now on the table, but out of camera range. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to put some more stuff on tomorrow. I've got a few more things I want to show you. In the name of General TESOL, some of you will know, and some of you, there'll be stuff you might have had in the advocacy class, which I'm actually teaching right now. Some of you are also in that. I'll be putting that lesson up tomorrow. Okay, well, I've been out of my office because they waxed the floors and it was verboten. Nobody could be in the building for 3 days. So they kind of left me a little disabled here. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.